This is what happened in Doha, and to be honest, it's a first for tennis. The Khalifa International Stadium was filled for a first-round matchup between Teresa Valentova of the Czech Republic and Alex Eala, who is much outside the top 100 rankings. We are discussing a total sellout. Every seat has been taken. Let me help you understand this. Grand Slam winners were practically playing to half-empty arenas, while Eala was causing complete chaos with 7,000 yelling supporters. After examining their whole roster of superstars and previous world number ones, the event directors declared, "You know what? Our main attraction is this 20-year-old Filipino." The way tennis scheduling operates was totally destroyed by that choice. Chaos broke out when the tickets were dropped. In a matter of minutes, gone. For what was supposed to be a quiet Tuesday afternoon contest, scalpers began to show up. The throngs outside the player entrance were getting out of control, so security had to request help. It was like witnessing a separate world come to life in a sport where early rounds typically result in sporadic clapping and people checking their phones. The Filipino community in Qatar organized as if they were getting ready for battle. Social media took off. Community organizations became active. Fan clubs organized. This wasn't a paid advertising or corporate marketing campaign aimed at increasing ticket sales. People who had been waiting their entire lives for someone to represent them on this stage showed their unadulterated passion. Imagine the contrast occurring all at once throughout the space. The top-ranked Aryna Sabalenka, which has won several tournaments, was packed to about 30 or 40% capacity. Parts of IGA Swiatek's early games were vacant. In theory, these players ought to win every competition they participate in. Rather, they are fighting for scant attention while this young player, who has never even won a WTA title, is the center of attention. If you're one of those well-established champs, that must be mentally taxing. After winning Wimbledon, dominating Roland Garros, and reaching the pinnacle of the sport, something occurs. In a single afternoon, a player outside of the top 100 produces more electricity than you have during the whole season. That reality has a terrible psychological impact. Here's what Eala discovered that others haven't. Backhands and serve speeds are no longer the only factors in tennis success. It's about standing for something greater than personal success. These Filipino supporters weren't merely rooting for tactical mastery or clean winners. They were happy to see themselves represented on a worldwide stage that has traditionally been dominated by American and European faces. The actual game turned into this amazing cerebral challenge. Imagine being hit by a loud boom on each and every point instead of receiving courteous tennis applause. That kind of energy has the power to either uplift or totally overwhelm you. Eala had to deal with 7,000 people yelling her name without allowing it to cause her to overdo anything. Valentova also had an advantage. She has a powerful serve and strong ground strokes. In addition, she had defeated Eala in their prior encounter. The Czech player had a better head-to-head record, and Eala had statistically struggled against that type of play. This should have been easy for Valentova on paper. Rather, Eala demonstrated the extent of her mental development. That strain could have destroyed her entirely 2 years ago. This time, she used the energy of the crowd as fuel. Her defensive abilities from the Rafa Nadal Academy came into play. She began prolonging rallies, forcing Valentova to hit more balls until the Czech player lost patience. One of the second set's points went viral right away. Eala was virtually in the doubles alley when she was forced so wide on her backhand side. She ran, slipped across the hard court, and managed to flick this passing shot down the line, neatly catching the corner. The ensuing roar was so powerful that nearby seismographs recorded it. It's not overstated. On scientific equipment, the noise was actually measuring. Eala took the microphone after winning and began addressing the audience in Tagalog. The place became completely insane. She praised the foreign workers who used their hard-earned money to purchase tickets and thanked them for making her feel at home. As a result, an emotional bond was formed that went beyond the physical tennis play. In the meantime, Sabalenka is most likely sitting in her hotel room wondering how she was overlooked at a tournament when she was a clear favorite to win the title. She has won numerous Grand Slam titles, accomplished everything the sport has to offer, and risen to the top of the rankings. However, the organizers supported a person who has never won a WTA event with all of their marketing resources. However, the tournament directors made the proper commercial decision. In Qatar, Eala sells tickets. At least not as intensely as Sabalenka does. Though the Filipino expat community is incredibly passionate and turns up in large numbers. Other groups either don't show up with the same enthusiasm or aren't there in sufficient numbers to foster that ambience. This reveals a significant blind spot in the WTA's athlete marketing strategy. The tour's promotional focus has traditionally been determined by Grand Slam tallies and rankings. However, cultural ties and demographic support are entirely overlooked by those conventional measurements. Eala may be ranked lower than Sabalenka in Qatar, but she is far more valuable from a business standpoint. Globally, tournament administrators are examining these figures and discovering that their approach to scheduling has been flawed. Top seeds have been automatically assigned to prime time slots in the hopes that this will increase attendance. But what if, regardless of their position in the rankings, the athlete with the most devoted fan base should receive those spots? This also highlights Southeast Asian markets' enormous, unrealized potential. The WTA has been pursuing China for years, with varying degrees of success. However, the Philippines is an example of a market that is motivated solely by emotional investment. The key to unleashing that potential is Eala. If she keeps going in this direction, we might see additional events aimed at Southeast Asia, or at the very least, acknowledgement that she has emerged as a key global marketing asset. This may appear to be a one-time novelty or cultural curiosity to viewers from other continents. However, it's actually revealing a fundamental change in the demography of tennis. For many years, the infrastructure, media attention, and sponsorship funds have been dominated by European and American celebrities. Everything is directed toward those well-established markets. However, because they lacked a champion to coalesce behind, large tennis fan communities. Moving forward, Eala is under tremendous strain in an entirely different way. Because they can't take the chance of placing her on outdoor courts or burying her in morning sessions, tournament organizers must now carefully plan her matches. Rather than the timetable determining her location, she controls the schedule. That's how star power is defined in textbooks. However, there is actual risk here as well. A battle like this requires a tremendous amount of emotional energy. In front of home-like crowds, young players frequently prevail in these intense emotional clashes, only to lose miserably in the subsequent round. There is evidence of the adrenaline hangover. Eala's crew must oversee her recuperation, assist her in getting some rest, and redirect her energies on the upcoming opponent. Round 1 does not determine the winner of the event. She still needs to perform tennis fundamentals against opponents who are getting harder, no matter how amazing the audience support was. The true problem as the week goes on is keeping that competitive edge while controlling expectations. People's memories of the entire tournament will be shaped by those pictures of empty seats at other highlighted matches in contrast to the packed Eala session. It doesn't matter who wins the prize in the end. The instant the initial cheers began to reverberate through the arena, Alex Eala became the focal point of the Qatar Open narrative. She gave what was beginning to look like another unmemorable early-season event vitality, energy, and color. This psychological reality must be processed by Sabalenka and the other top seeds. Based on performance and consistency, they are currently better players, but they are unable to replicate Eala's environment with ease. They are forced to face an unpleasant reality, which is a mental blow that is hard to recover from. You are not necessarily the most significant or captivating athlete just because you are the most successful. Relevance and excellence are not always synonymous. The Filipino fans demonstrated something that tennis authorities really need to comprehend. Professional sports survive and flourish because of their fervent, intensely involved fan groups. Even if you have the most talented athletes in history, the sport will eventually perish if no one is motivated to participate. Eala have a quality that better teaching cannot provide or enhance. Because there are Filipino populations in almost every major city in the world, she has an inherent global following that follows her wherever. That is a competitive edge unrelated to tactics or shot-making. It is both demographic and cultural. Additionally, it's making players like Sabalenka, who have dominated via unadulterated tennis brilliance, understand that contemporary star power necessitates more than just winning games. You must stand for something that people can relate to more deeply. While Grand Slam winners played to dispersed crowds, Alex Eala recently sold out a stadium during a first-round match. She was chosen by the organizers of the Qatar Open as their main draw over world number ones and previous winners. And that choice produced an unparalleled environment and economic prosperity. In tennis, star power is no longer determined by rankings. It has to do with making connections. Eala is an expert at that. And when the noise in Doha finally settled and the lights inside the stadium slowly dimmed, something very important had already become clear. This was never just another first-round tennis match. What happened that night at the Qatar Open felt more like a turning point, a moment where the entire tennis world was reminded that the sport is changing in ways nobody fully expected. For decades, professional tennis has operated under a simple formula. The biggest courts go to the highest-ranked players. The biggest marketing campaigns focus on Grand Slam champions. The schedule revolves around established stars who have already proven themselves on the biggest stages. And for the most part, that system has worked. But Doha showed us that something else can suddenly rewrite the script. Because on that night, thousands of fans didn't show up for rankings. They didn't show up for trophies or statistics. They showed up for connection. They showed up for pride. And they showed up for Alex Eala. Think about the contrast for a moment. Players who have already conquered the sport, champions like Aryna Sabalenka and Iga Swiatek, continue to dominate the rankings through incredible talent and consistency. Their achievements are undeniable, and their place in tennis history is secure. But what happened in Doha revealed something deeper about the modern sports landscape. In today's world, greatness isn't defined only by titles. It's also defined by how deeply a player connects with people. Alex Eala represents something powerful for millions of fans around the globe, especially for the Filipino community that has long waited to see one of their own rise on the international tennis stage. For them, this isn't just about watching a match. It's about seeing their story, their culture, and their identity reflected on a global platform.